Okay, hello, welcome. I felt the need to create this video just to simplify what I thought was difficult information out there on the internet, and just through my own experiences and developing info, research and trying things on the racetrack. This very simple person's guide to motorcycle suspension setup, mainly sort of road sports bikes type things. So here we go. Alright, so I've done a bit of a layout here, a bit of a brain dump of all the things I could think of. So I wanted to start with basically springs and geometry. So there is, a pretty level sort of setup that you can have with your bike. You can have a bit more of a cruiser type style where the forks are a bit more sloped out, or a race bike kind of setup where you've got your forks a lot steeper. So most bikes stay on what they are. You buy them, they are what they are. So don't get too carried away with this. But you're going to have a bike that's created to be fairly stable. If through things like changing your preload, you can make minor adjustments to this geometry, or if you move your forks through the triple clamps, that kind of thing, you can actually make more major adjustments. So I just thought I'd talk about geometry basically. If you've got your forks pushed out further, a more relaxed angle on your forks, you're going to have a lighter front because your weight's going to be sitting more across the rear, assuming you've got longer forks with that as well. It's going to be a little bit slower steering, and this word trail is what is used to describe how that is, which is really the point. If you continue your fork lead down to the ground on an angle and down, you get a length called trail. Don't need to know what it is, just this. Only people who are mucking around doing really serious geometry adjustments need to know that. So if you were to, like on a race bike, drop the frame down over the forks, so those forks are coming up through the triple clamps, you're going to steepen that head angle. It's going to put more weight on the front. I've used the American term here, the death wobble. So if you're on the gas, it's going to make that front quite twitchy. The more you accelerate and bring weight off, that steep angle is just going to make things a bit more shaky. But it will be faster steering. A little bit slower steering, faster steering, neutral we'll call it. And these things, muck around with the front. You can also muck around with the back, with the length of the shock. If you've got a adjustable shock, like for the length of the shock, you can actually jack the back up and down as well. But for the road, I wouldn't recommend that. You get into a situation where your angle of your swing arm has an influence over anti-squat. So if you've got your springs and everything set up right, you'll have a certain amount of squat in the bike when you're sitting on it, and then when you're powering on it, it'll have just a natural tendency to squat further or squat less. So anti-squat's a bit about that swing arm level, but again, you can't really change it. Your swing arm's the level it is. The tyre size creates that centre point to the ground. So unless you're changing your shock length, you're not going to change your swing arm. So that's a little bit about geometry. So if you're pitching the bike forward, you're going to have more front weight, shorter steering angle, more flighty, but faster steering the other way around. So that's just a little bit there. So what else I've put here? If you do pull the forks up through the clamp to want that sporty style, a bit quicker steering, old style conventional forks, you just obviously have to realise that you're going to be reducing the amount of travel you've got from the top of the fork seal to that bottom triple clamp. You might start impacting that bottom triple clamp. And an upside down fork, later model, you can do that. You just might have to check your wheel doesn't hit anything like your radiators or plastics or anything like that. Okay, preload in springs. So this is the bit that we get charged a bloody fortune for, and I think it's a rot for the industry, to be honest. The industry should be doing better to set up or provide, especially if you buy a new bike for lots of thousands of dollars. I can't believe we don't actually get it tailored to our weight. We just accept the European average weight or the Japanese average weight, and we get these adjusters for preload to compensate. So what we have is a normal spring length that they'll recommend with the factory. You can reduce that spring length down by screwing in your preload, or you can wind it out and make that string length longer. So obviously a shorter spring is going to be stronger. So if you're a fat bastard like me and you sit on it on a softer spring, it's going to compress further. But if you stiffen that spring up, it's not going to compress as much. Lighter people, you're lucky. You can just wind everything right off and control the damping to a certain extent. So of course we get heavy people get new springs because we can't get a happy medium. When we shorten that spring down, it becomes too short, and we miss out on a spring's natural progressive spring rate. That progressive spring rate is quite meaningful because your top half of your spring travel is going to be a bit more supple, and when we reduce that spring down, we're kind of taking that area away and we're going more into the harder spring. So that's why we only can preload up so much. And if anybody's interested in any of this stuff and still watching me, you would have watched plenty of videos online talking about how to measure your static sag and your sag. So I've just sort of written some words there, but I guess the bit I've written here, the spring sits within the forks. The fork never changes length. The fork is always the fork, the shock is always the shock, unless you've got a proper adjustable one. So when you're winding these springs on or off, all you're doing is changing the toughness of the spring, that resilience of the spring to compress. You're getting into the shorter, where it's stronger, or you're softening it off so it's weaker. That's all happening within the fork, so you're not actually changing anything about how your bike is sitting, geometry-wise. But it does have an impact on that, because if you're a fat bugger like me, and you put that preload all the way up, you're trying to get to a point where you're sort of using a third of your travel just to sit there and be comfortable. And so if you've got a really cranked up short spring and you're only just getting a third of your travel already used just for you sitting on the bike, then that doesn't allow the other 2/3 of the travel that you want to be able to use for damping on the road, bump absorption and making your ride a bit more comfortable. So that's why getting a harder spring that can be full length will be beneficial to your ride comfort, rather than just cranking up your preload, and you can only go so far, and you won't be able to achieve your third of your total travel from measuring your static sag. So that's all geometry. So geometry crossing into handling, because I'm putting compression and rebound over here as feeling, because this is where you feel what's going on. And really, if you're not in tune with your ass or your teeth or your head, then walk away. This all relates to you paying attention to what's going on when you're riding. And if you can't focus on keeping yourself alive and going, oh, that's really bumpy, that's really jarring me. Am I feeling the suspension lower down and come up smoothly, or is it really harsh, or is it pogoing around? All these different things. Is the front pogoing and the back's really rock hard? All these things, all feeling. So do your practice, change things, check your feeling, and then change something else. Change the same things and more. Feeling. You can't do any of this without tuning in. That's my key takeaway. Get your springs about the right amount, get your geometry sort of right, and then you come into fine-tuning the feeling. So compression I've detailed down here first, how much punishment your butt and your body takes. Obviously sports bike, they've done a lot of compression because they want to have a really firm setup. The track's pretty smooth, you don't have to worry about bump absorption, so you're all good on the track. But on a road, I'm in New Zealand, and the roads are pretty bumpy, so I have my setup quite soft to account for me not wanting to get pounded to death. And bumps can upset your handling. If you're mid-corner and you hit a bump and the bike doesn't soak it up, you know, you risk crashing and all sorts of things. So you really got to think about the feeling that you're getting from the bike when you're riding it. Is it soaking everything up, or is it just riding like it's on rails, compliant? So compression is really about punishment. How much can you handle? How much do you want versus the sportiness? You can soften your compression all the way off, and if you bounce the forks or bounce the back end, you'll see it just goes nice and soft down. Nice and soft, and that's no damping of the oil flow potentially. And then as you start coming in, you can keep bouncing it, turn it a bit, bounce it a bit. Then you go, oh, okay, I can see where that starts to rise instead of going boom on the spring. So the damping starts to overcome the spring and do its job. And of course, if you dial it all the way in, then you're not really allowing that oil to flow through the orifices, and so you get that very firm, hard ride again. Because you're going to be effectively riding on your spring, and the oil is going to add even more restriction to how that fork wants to move. It's just going to be hard. And remember, if you're going to muck around with these suspension settings, it does, when you get warm, go for a ride for 20 minutes, the oil warms up just like in your engine, and it does change a bit. It will soften up as the oil thins out. So play with it. Get your compression right. Do this first so you can work out how you like your travel to be, and then you can go to your rebound, because the rebound is kind of, I put set and forget, because when you bounce it down, and that's why it's good to do it when the compression is all the way off, you bounce it down and it'll rise back up, or it'll bounce back up. And getting to grips with how that looks and feels is pretty much key to setting your rebound. You want that to be controlled, so it's not just the springing without any oil damping, it's actually under control. It comes back up in a smooth fashion, and that'll feel pretty nice. Or, you know, too much, and it'll almost create a hard feel because it'll push away too quickly. See, it's complicated. Stiff rebound versus soft rebound, how quickly it's going to move. There is some material I might link, a picture from one of the places I've gathered information from, that you can read your rebound setting off your tyre. It's not necessary, in my mind it is more of a track focused thing, more sporty focused thing. If the groove patterns on your tyres, front or rear, if it's raised at the leading edge, it's a sign that your rebound is too slow, and if it's raised up on the back edge, it's a sign your rebound's too fast. And so you can see that, you go look at your tyres, they'll have a nice little lip on either one. They'll be a really sharp square edge or whatever, and the other one will be rounded off. So it'll be either one of those, too slow, too fast. Obviously you're going to have to ride a while to work that out on the road, because the road tyre is designed to last a long time, so it won't show these kind of signs as quickly as a race tyre will, which is, one session and you can see the evidence right away. So kind of blending compression and rebound into the activity there, but got an exclamation mark. Max preload means springs hard as well. And you need that new spring. So yeah, if you've got maximum preload, then you're going to struggle to get that soft feeling, that soft compliant feeling out of it. New springs. If on the lighter people side, too soft can feel like you've got too much compression as well, because it'll just the oil won't control that damping, and you'll just be on the springs, and they'll still have enough to bounce back out to the end of their travel, and they're made to return to their home position. So there's a bit of a trap where abrasive bumps can be from too hot, soft, or too hard, which is why it's worth moving a couple of clicks, 3 clicks, 4 clicks, whatever you feel like doing at a time, and go use your feeling and work out, is this good feeling or is it bad feeling? What did it do? Do I feel anything? Possibly on many of the not so recent bikes, you won't probably notice much feeling at all, because the suspension valving was pretty agricultural. So you might need to use a lot more of the clicks to actually get a noticeable difference. And that's where going and getting some aftermarket gold valves or inserts or whatever, spending the big dollars, you can improve that damping significantly, and you know, it's amazing what good quality suspension, a couple of clicks, and then you can notice it out on the track, even on the road, and if they'll give you a lot wider range of operating as well, so you can really have a lot better control of these things. But even with expensive stuff, you're still going to find a nice spot where you tend to operate, and you'll leave it there. You're not racing, you're not changing your settings every time the wind changes or the rain changes or the temperature changes. On the road, you're going to set it and forget it. And you might come back and check your rebound and compression occasionally, because oil gets older. It doesn't take that many hours of oil use to have the oil start to break down. So, you know, could be a year, could be a couple of years that you change the oil to control your feeling. But these are things to think about when you're looking at your suspension. And that is it. So yeah, measure your preload, see if you can get, watch some other videos for details on preload. It does give you that basic geometry. If you're cranking that spring down a lot, then you're doing this race bike thing, and you can get the steep steering angle, fast steering sort of stuff, likewise on the back. So you want it to be giving you that third of your travel. I think it's a third, you know, watch those videos, they'll tell you 30 to 35 mils or something for the road. For the front, because it's probably 120 mil travel. The back, you know, you can put a bit of grease or something on the inner arm, slide, so you can see what your maximum extension is with that slide. Put your cable tie on the front wheel, the front fork, so you can see if you're using, how much compression range you're actually using. If you're only using 50 mils and you've got 100, why? You paid for 100, use 100. Soften that compression off a bit, get that fork moving a bit further. If you've measured your springs and you've got your setup for your preload, then you're just playing with these. If you don't, because you've got that amount of travel, once you've ascertained that amount of travel, this is your comfort. So use your feelings, feel it, try it. There you go. I'm glad to get that out of my head. Hopefully that's of some interest to somebody who will watch this, being that I don't have really any followers. But I'm putting it into the world. Enjoy. Thank you for your time.